Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I thought it would be fun to talk about the books that I read in May. How many books did I read? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 books in May. Well, can I count that Mary Oliver? I guess I haven't technically finished it. I'm going to count it 8 books because I will finish it before tomorrow. Today's technically the 30th, so like there is another day I could finish another book, but I don't think I will. So I had a really strong reading month this month, so I'm excited to talk to you about the books that I read. Unfortunately, the very first book was the worst book maybe I've read this year. So that's kind of saying a lot. And that was A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. I gave this book 2 stars. This is the sequel to A Remarkably Beautiful Thing? Is that what it's called? No, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. I read that earlier this year and I really enjoyed it. And this one just felt really flat for me. And I'm trying to remember, I wish I would have taken some notes. Maybe I'll start doing that a little bit better, taking notes so that I can remember for these wrap-ups exactly what I didn't like about it. But basically, you're following the whole cast and crew of the first book and kind of getting their perspectives of what has happened after the first book. The first book, this giant statue appears in New York City as well as a bunch of other cities around the world, and a girl films it with her friend and goes viral on YouTube. And the first one is a lot about fame and money and power and how it changes you, but then also like kind of has this like sci-fi element. This one was a lot more heavy on the science-y part of it, but I found the messaging so heavy-handed to the point that it became obnoxious and hard for me to get behind what Hank Green was trying to say. There was also, this was it was published in 2020, so there is a lot of very politically charged things in here, and there are some things that in here that are actually incorrect, that, information has come out later and things have been proven right and wrong. And so there are some things in here that are incorrect that are touted as such a morally superior thing that just really rubbed me the wrong way. Also, I really didn't like, what's his name? Andy in this book. I think Andy kind of sucked in this book quite a lot, and maybe that was the point, was for him to kind of go through this character change, but I just didn't like him. I just didn't really like any of the characters in this book, whereas in the first book, while there were unlikable things about them, I still wanted to know what was going to happen. I could still kind of root for them, but in this book they were all just kind of whiny, immature, and annoying. So there's that. Unfortunately, I didn't like that one very much. But that's the only book this month that I didn't like. So let's move on to the positive, which is the rest of these reviews. The next one that I read was Confessions by Kanae Minato, translated by Stephen Snyder. And I gave this book 4 stars. This book is about a teacher whose daughter has passed away on school grounds, and on the last day of school she sits her class down and reveals that certain members of the class were actually responsible for the little girl's death. And then every chapter is a different perspective from somebody in the class. I thought this book was very well written and very sad. Obviously it surrounds the death of a 3-year-old, and that's very, hits very close home for me. My daughter's 2.5, so I definitely could picture, what this little girl acted like, and so that's very sad, but I think that it was really well written. I will say the only reason I knocked it down a star was because after a while, it's like, you're getting the same exact story, however many perspectives there are, I can't remember, but multiple times and just from somebody else's perspective. So kind of once you get towards the end, it's like, okay, we know that this happened. Like, it's a little bit too much, but not so much that I didn't enjoy it. Like, just enough that I was like, okay. But then the ending was crazy and unhinged, and I really enjoyed it. So that was Confessions. The next one that I read was The Appeal by Janice Hallett. I gave this book 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. This book is about a theater group, and the kind of leaders of the theater group, their granddaughter has been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and they are trying to raise money for her to be able to get an experimental drug from the United States. They live in Britain, and there is a murder that happens. And this whole book is told in like transcripts. So basically at the beginning of the book, it's like 2 young lawyers. It's like their boss is emailing them, is like, okay, here's all of the information that I want you to go through and tell me what you can find. And so the entire book is like emails and phone calls and text messages and stuff like that. And I really enjoy mixed media, and you just fly through it because it's like, it's emails and texts and stuff like that. And I found it a really interesting way to tell a story, and, you know, what emails were included and what's left out. And I just really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was like fantastic storytelling. I did see what was coming, but also didn't. And there was a lot of twists and turns and talk about a lot of interesting things. And the like biggest reveal, I was like, what is happening? So I really enjoyed that book. That was The Appeal by Janice Hallett. The next book that I read was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and translated by Roz Schwartz and Sophie McIntosh. This book I gave 4.5 stars. I'm sure that if you've been around on the internet, you've heard of it, but it is about a group of women who are being held captive in an underground bunker, and one day they get out. And it's from the perspective of one of the women, and it is heartbreaking and confusing, and you want to know why these women were being held and what's going on, and various reveals happen, but really there's no firm answer of why these people were being held captive in underground bunkers, or what has happened really above that caused this. A lot of them, they don't remember. I think they've been like drugged, so they can't remember, you know, how they came to be in that position. And this is a heartbreaking book, but it's very, very interesting, and it's interesting to see this. Our main character was a young girl when they were first put into the bunkers. But basically, it's very heartbreaking. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting look at people, how they behave in these situations, and I found it very interesting and very well written. Okay, sorry. My daughter had an issue with her toy. I had to help her with. She's laying down for a nap, but sometimes it takes a while to get there. The last 3 books that I read this month were The Antidote by Karen Russell, An Immense World by Ed Yong, and Devotions. No, those weren't the last books. Sorry, those were the books for my physical TBR vlog. So I will go over them very quickly. If you want my full thoughts, you can check out that vlog. I talk about each of them in depth, why I loved them, but I loved all of these. So The Antidote, I gave 4 stars. This follows a prairie witch who people can tell her their secrets, their regrets, and she vaults them inside of her, and they don't remember them anymore. And it begins and ends with 2 real weather events: the Black Sunday dust storm and the flooding of the Republican River, which received over 24 inches of rain in 24 hours, which is a crazy amount. So basically it's just a very interesting look into a small town, their secrets, their regrets, and has a lot of really great things to say about Native Americans, about power, and how people use power, how people act when they feel powerless, and I found it fantastic. An Immense World by Ed Yong, I gave 5 stars. This book is all about animals' senses and how they shape the world around us. It has really awesome, interesting information about senses and how they are used by both humans and animals. It gives a ton of information about a whole bunch of animals. He talks to a lot of different scientists in a lot of different areas, scientific areas as well as areas around the world. And I just loved it. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. It's so interesting to me. And then Devotions by Mary Oliver is a poetry collection. Most of the poems are focused on nature, and I absolutely love them. The last book that I read this month was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Oh, you guys, this book is so sad. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. Have to. I really do enjoy The Hunger Games, and I went through a Hunger Games kick last year. I actually didn't read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes or watch the movie, and I honestly don't really feel the need to, but I really enjoyed Sunrise on the Reaping. This follows Haymitch's story. Haymitch is the mentor in the original trilogy. It's absolutely heartbreaking and absolutely fantastic. I think the messaging was a lot more heavy-handed in this book than it was in the original trilogy, but not in a bad way. I think it still had fantastic things to say. It makes me see Haymitch in a different light and want to like go back to the original trilogy and just like focus on him and how he acts and what he says. And of course, it's a heartbreaking, tragic story and has a lot to say about the government and control and propaganda. And I find all of those topics very, very fascinating. So, yeah. Oh man. It was absolutely heartbreaking though. If you want to talk spoilers with me in the comments, go ahead and do so. Just make sure you put spoilers, that way you don't spoil anyone else if they haven't read it yet. But yeah, fantastic. And I'm really interested to watch the movie. They've come out with a lot of the casting so far, or all of it. And I think the casting choices they seem like they'll be really good. So I'm really interested to see how the movie turns out, and I definitely will be watching it. I do like the original Hunger Games movies, and like I said, I didn't watch The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I've seen a bunch of spoiler reviews of it, so I feel like I know enough from that. So, I don't know. Let me know if you think I really, really need to read that book, but I just hate President Snow and I don't want to know more about him, you know what I mean? So, those were all the books I read in May. It was a fantastic reading month for me. It was such a good reading month for me, and I'm hoping that that continues on into June. I need to head out, like right now, to head to my infusion, and I'm going to be starting Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor while I'm there. I've heard good things about it. I've heard sci-fi, but not super hard sci-fi. So it should be interesting. And I'll probably update you about that sometime in the future, so stay tuned. What was your favorite book you read this month and your least favorite book you read this month? Have you read any of these? Let me know. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!